there's some places you go where you really need somebody to show you around. You really need a guide sometimes, right? I think about, as a lot of us are traveling this summer, you go to places like museums or parks, you go to, vacation destinations, right? You might be going up north this summer and go to some kind of lighthouse or something. You might be going up and you want to check out some waterfalls up in the UP or what have you, right? As we travel, as we explore, we need a guide. See, for one thing, let's just talk about like vacationing in Michigan. There are just so many options, of course. Anywhere up north of here you go, there's just cool stuff to do and to see. But you don't know it's there until somebody tells you, right? You don't know it's there until somebody brings you there. And there's this common conversation that we have in Michigan during the summertime where people are talking about their travels. And they're like, oh, we went to such and such and we did this thing. And you're like, wait, you can do what? Where is that? Like, oh, you got to see it. Oh, it's great. You go here. No, you eat at this restaurant. Then you got to go check out this place. You got to do here. We stayed at this campground and it was really great, right? And people start giving you tips and pointers, right? And they're usually right. They're usually great tips, right? And you get to go and check out these places, experience these things. You go to a lot of these places, and frequently there will be some kind of guide. There will be somebody there whose job is to like help you get the most out of it. So you might go to some kind of museum or some kind of lighthouse kind of turned into a museum kind of thing. That's what all the museums in Michigan basically are. Is they used to be lighthouses and now they're museums. But like, that kind of thing, like having somebody there who can kind of show you around and they say, well, here's where this happened and there's this thing, right? Or even just, at the very least, there's little plaques, there's signage, there's information available to kind of guide you through, right? And there's certain things that we need that for. And we need that for like places like that, where here I'm going to this interesting place I haven't been before, and I'm going to learn about something from history or something about nature or whatever that I don't know much about. And I need somebody to kind of walk me through, right? So maybe I'm going for a fun experience. I need somebody to tell me where I can go and do something fun and explain to me, like, here's what you got to do. Make sure to bring this. We did this and it was really great, right? We need that kind of help. We need the kind of help that, like, hey, expert, show me how explain the history here. Tell me what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a boat or I'm looking at a lighthouse or whatever. Like, explain what I'm seeing here, right? We need guides for that kind of thing. We need guides in kind of every part of life, don't we? Right? Like, my car is broken. Now, you might know a lot about cars. My strategy to cars goes as far as like kicking the tires and asking why the radio doesn't work, right? That's about what I know about cars. So like, I need somebody who can help me. I need somebody who knows things I don't, who can explain things to me, who can fix things for me, right? When it comes to your money, right? There are things that you don't know how to do and or aren't able to do, and you need somebody who can do it for you. You want to buy a house. What do you need? You need a realtor or at least a lawyer to write up a contract. There's certain things that you need to be able to guide you through that process and help you watch out for things that you wouldn't know to look out for, right? In medicine, in our health, right? We need experts. We need people who can give us good advice, who can give us good treatment in every area of life, right? That's Becky right there. Okay, good to know. Everybody direct your medical questions to Becky. But like oh, just for you, okay. Everybody direct your medical questions about Ken to Becky. So, anyway, I'm sorry. So, right, there's different areas in life that you just need an expert. You need a guide. You need somebody who kind of knows what they're doing. Yesterday we went to the, wow, now I'm blanking on the name. The Michigan State has the big botanical garden. Hidden Lake. We went to Hidden Lake yesterday. It was a lot of fun. And we went and saw, like, have you guys been there and seen those bonsai trees? That's my favorite part. Did you know any tree can be a bonsai tree? You go there and you think that you're looking at like a little miniature forest that was made for like a stop motion movie or something. You think this is like a toy thing. It's real trees. And there is an art and a science to like clipping it and trimming it in certain ways. And over the decades, you get a full-grown tree that is miniature. And it doesn't make any sense to me. It shouldn't be possible. Even sometimes the leaves are tiny. I don't get it, but it's the coolest thing I've ever seen. So if you haven't been, here's a plug. Go to Hidden Lake Gardens, right, and check out the bonsai trees. It is amazing. But we went with my mother-in-law, who knows basically like we're walking through a botanical garden, and she's like, oh, that's such and such, oh, that's such and, like she just knows what everything is. She just seems to know everything about everything. She's very, very smart and very experienced when it comes to anything horticultural. She just knows so much about it. But it's so cool walking along with her, and she's like, oh, there's this, and my kids are having fun, like, they love a lot of the flowers and stuff, and she's talking about what they are, right? It helps in certain environments. I don't know anything about that stuff. It helps me if I'm going to go to a place like that. I'm going to get a lot more out of it if I have a guide like her to show me the way, right? And the best kind of guide you can have is somebody that knows you and they also know the way. They know you and they know the way to go, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today. As we go through our series in the book of Psalms, and I hope you're following along with the Psalms reading plan. I want to say, I should have been more upfront about this. The reading plan does not necessarily correspond to the sermon series exactly, because there's just not really a way to do that. Like, if we were only at Psalm 23, this many weeks in, and then by the end of it, you've got to be up to Psalm 139, like, it's just a bit much. So what we're doing is we're doing the reading plan, and it's just kind of at its own pace from the sermon series. We're just kind of doing some select sermons as we go along. But today we're in Psalm chapter 23, and this is, if you have ever heard a psalm from the Bible, this is the one you've heard. If nothing else, you've heard this at a funeral or something. I'm going to read from the NIV. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Right? That's a classic one. This is one of those ones that is very often used at funerals, very often used in a situation where somebody needs to be comforted, and for good reason. It's this beautiful metaphor, a beautiful picture that is largely lost on us because there's a certain cultural experience being represented here that, at least for me and probably for most of you, you probably haven't spent that much time around sheep, right? And so it's kind of I can imagine, in theory, what it's like being a shepherd or what it's like being a sheep. I don't really have firsthand experience. Well, I suppose even a shepherd doesn't have firsthand experience being a sheep, but you know what I mean. Right? But it's kind of, there's a lot that's going on here. This is written by David, right? And we know that David grew up tending to his family's sheep, right? Before later he would become anointed king and then basically be on the run for years and years for all of his young adult life until finally King Saul died and he became king of Israel and spent the rest of his life as king. But David grew up tending to sheep. And I think a lot of important life lessons happened for him during that period of time. And this is one example of a psalm that he's written where he kind of reflects on that. This is probably the best example where he's really reflecting on the experience of a shepherd and applying that to our relationship with God. So let's dig into the text here. So he says, the Lord, again, all caps, that means it's Yahweh. Yahweh is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. Right? So when God is your shepherd, first of all, let's just say anytime that you are being called a sheep, it's not a compliment. Sheep are gross, they're stinky, they're stupid, they're weak, they're fragile. They really have no survival skills at all. If left to its own devices, a sheep will not make it. If it's with the flock, it might make it for a while, but that's more just because of probability than because of their skills as a group. They really don't do well without somebody who knows what they're doing to guide them. They need help. And so a good shepherd, what? A good shepherd knows the sheep, knows what they need, knows how they react to certain situations, knows what's good for them. And a good shepherd knows the way. They know the land. They know the area. They know what kind of animals are out there and how to avoid them or how to deal with them if they show up. They know where to find water. They know where to find green grass. They know where to find what's needed. They know what areas to go and what areas not to go, right? So a good shepherd knows their sheep well, and they know the area, the terrain well. They know the way to lead the sheep in, right? So when God is your shepherd, he said, Yahweh is my shepherd, and because of that, I lack nothing. I have everything I need. He makes me lie down in green pastures, right? He leads me to places with nice, crunchy, delicious green grass that I can eat. And that's where he lets me lie down. I cannot be trusted to find a safe place to lie down for myself. Now, sheep will not lie down and go to sleep unless they feel safe, right? So a good shepherd leads them to a peaceful, safe place where they feel safe, where there's nothing going to trigger them, and they can relax and they can sleep. He leads me beside quiet waters. Sheep are scared of loud noises. They don't like rapids. They don't like, a river that's too loud, right? So he leads me beside still waters, quiet water. Water that's not loud and going to scare me. Water that I can go and I can drink. Also, by the way, you do not want to get a sheep close to a current because it will not make it. It will just be a drowning pillow floating through the river. So you don't want that, right? So you need still water where they can drink, where they're not going to get swept away, and also where they're not going to be freaked out by the noise of the water, right? So he leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul, right? When my soul is tired, he refreshes me. When I am exhausted, when I am worn out, God, now this is going beyond what a shepherd can do. God gives me strength. God gives me energy. God gives me a fresh start when I need it. God helps me get up and keep going. He gives me what I need to keep moving. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake, right? So he guides me along, you could also translate this as like good paths, right? He leads me in a way that's good, not in a way that's bad. Right? Like God is not leading me somewhere bad for me. He is only going to lead me somewhere that is safe, that is good for me, right? And why does he do this? For his name's sake, right? God, everything is for God's glory. Everything that we can do that of any importance glorifies God. Everything that matters in this world is for God's glory. Now that might sound egotistical. The reason for that is because it would be really arrogant for you to say that everything is about your glory, right? The reason that's not the case with God is, for one thing, he actually is God, right? So God actually did make the universe. He is capable of anything. He is all-powerful. He is eternal. He is above everything. Nothing can touch him. Nothing can defeat him. Nothing can intimidate him. Well, okay, so then at that point, when you start saying those things about yourself, if it's true, you're just stating a fact. The reason it's arrogant for us to say those things is because it's not a fact. We are anything but immortal and eternal. We are anything but powerful. We are anything but all-knowing, right? We're very fragile. We're very limited. We're the sheep here, right? But God, as the shepherd, as the perfect shepherd, the ideal shepherd, God deserves glory because he really is awesome, right? Now, when somebody does a good job, what do? We tell them good job, right? When somebody does a good job and you start overly criticizing them, you know what we call that? We call that nitpicking. Monday morning quarterbacking, right? When somebody does a good job and we have a bad attitude about that, we call that unsportsmanlike, right? We just instinctively recognize, hey, if somebody does a good job, there should be some kind of recognition that they did a good job. Some kind of appreciation for that. If somebody does well at something, there should be some kind of appreciation for that. We just know that instinctively. It really bothers us when we feel we've done good work and it's not being appreciated. It's not being recognized. It really bothers us when somebody, especially like in sports, when we see somebody who, instead of being happy for somebody else's success, they have to find some way to denigrate them and say, well, they're not really that great. They got lucky, something like that. The sun was in my eyes. It's not fair, right? Where you have to find some way to take them down a notch. You can't just be happy for them that they did well, right? We recognize that there's something wrong with that. There's a character issue there. So here's the thing. When somebody is as perfect as God, when somebody has done the things that God did, right? Have you ever made something that was deserving of somebody saying, hey, good job, right? God made all this, right? Like God made everything that we make is out of stuff that God made, right? So if there should be some amount of praise when I do a good job making something or building something or fixing something, well, how much more should God get glory for everything he's made, right? If I should get some kind of credit for accomplishing something impressive, well, how much more for God who's capable of anything and who's done miracles, right? If I should get some kind of credit or some kind of praise for good character, for integrity, for honesty, well, goodness. I mean, how righteous and holy and perfect is God, right? So I could keep going on and on about every attribute we can think of for God. Anything that we would praise or admire in a person, God is so much more. So yeah, of course God deserves all the glory and all the praise and all the honor. And it's weird for us to understand because we like to think of God as a person in certain ways, and this is one of the ways that he is not like a person. God actually deserves that much credit and that much glory, and it is not overdoing it to give it to him. That's why we come and we sing songs to him and we pray to him and we address God and appreciate him and revere him the way that we do. We do that because he deserves it, because it's right. And there is something ingrained in us we're designed for that we know that we don't function properly unless everything in our lives is revolving around him. Now, when that happens with a person, that's called narcissism, right? Where everything revolves around them. Right? I'm not saying that that they should be diagnosed with a personality disorder in every case. We all do narcissistic things from time to time, right? But when I want everything to revolve around me, it's all about what I want, it's all about my feelings, and nobody else's feelings matter, nobody else's needs matter, it's just about me, right? That's very narcissistic. Except God actually, like Colossians 1 said, he created all things, and in him all things hold together. Like he's literally, he sustains reality as we know it. Well, okay, so things literally do all revolve around God. And we are designed to understand our place in the world, that we have authority and privilege that is given to us by God, but God is still God and we're not. Right? So everything in our life should be giving God glory. So he leads me along the right paths for his name's sake. Right? It is important that people see God for who he is, that people understand him for what he is. Right? And so that factors in. He is caring for us, and in caring for us, God is glorified in that too. Right? Verse 4, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Right? Now this is sometimes misunderstood. That people get the idea that there's like, what's this, your translation might be like the King James, the valley of the shadow of death or things like that. And people are like, what's this valley? Like maybe when we die, we have to walk through this dark valley or whatever. There's some weird stuff out there, some ways people misunderstand it. That's not what he's saying. He's saying, even if, like a place in general, if I had to walk through a place that is dark, that is scary, that seems dangerous to me, right? He's saying, even if I walk through a place that to me seems dark and scary and I wouldn't have chosen this path, even then, actually, I don't have to be afraid. Why? Because your rod and your staff comfort me. Now, what does that mean? God's got a rod and a staff, and he's like, hey, it's okay, buddy. Like, let me pet you with it. Like, no. Those are weapons, right? So a shepherd in this culture is typically going to have a couple things. They're going to have a rod, which is kind of like a club. It's going to be a shorter stick usually. There's going to be some knot or ball of wood on the end of it that's heavy, that's hard, that you wouldn't want to get hit with. And then they might carry that around in their belt. And this is something that you can use as a weapon, right? You could smack, if you get like a lion coming at you, if you get a bear, if you get whatever, right? You can give it a good whack on the head with that thing, or you could chuck it, you could throw it, and it's heavy on the end. So like there's a lot of ways that you could use this as a weapon. It's very versatile, it's very useful, right? The other one, you're going to have a staff. Now, we might picture a shepherd's crook, and I don't know why. I don't know where that comes from. Probably wasn't in that shape. But it's going to be a longer stick, and this stick is it's just kind of an all-around, I need to reach something kind of stick. So you might use it. You have a sheep that's kind of wandering off a little too far away. You might kind of nudge it back. This is especially important if you have little lambs, because if you touch a lamb too much and get your scent on it, the mother might reject it and not nurse it. So in that particular case, that's a situation where if you're trying to direct a lamb, you're going to want to touch it as little as possible with your hands. Use your staff, use your stick, right? Or you might come to fruit trees and you might shake some branches with that long stick and knock some fruit down for your sheep to eat, right? There's a lot of ways a nice staff, or it's just a walking stick too. There's a lot of ways that it comes in handy. It's very practical, right? So these are the tools of the trade for a shepherd in this culture that we're talking about. Right? These are the kinds of things David would have had on him. We also know from 1 Samuel, I think chapter 17, he talks about using a sling as well, and that's what he uses to defeat Goliath too. Right? So he had a sling on him, which probably a lot of shepherds did, especially you can imagine a boy unsupervised out there. What's he going to do for fun? Right? This is before he had a phone or a Game Boy or anything. Right? So he's gonna try hitting stuff with rocks, and he's going to have a sling and stuff like that. It makes sense. Anyway, so these are the kinds of things that a shepherd would have. So if you are a sheep, David is saying, even the darkest, scariest, most deadly place I have ever walked that you have led me down, even then I'm not afraid. Why? Because I know my shepherd has his rod and his staff, ain't nothing touching me. I am a fragile, weak, helpless, disgusting sheep. I am absolutely useless. If left to my own devices, it is a hot mess. But with my shepherd by my side, man, we could walk through the gates of hell and I wouldn't have to be scared, because as long as my shepherd's there and he's got his weapons, man, I got nothing to worry about. Nothing could possibly touch me or the others in my flock. Right? This is the picture of God. Here is a God who is so fully capable. He knows you so well. He knows exactly what you need. He knows exactly what you like. You're munching on that yummy grass. It's like, yep, I thought you'd like that grass. That's why I brought you here. You're drinking some water. Yep, that's why I brought you here. This is the water that you like. This is a safe place where I can come and get you some water, and it's not too dark. It's not too scary. There's no rushing, rapids or anything like that, right? I know what you need. I know what you like. I can take good care of you, and I have your best interest at heart, right? All I want to do is protect you and keep you safe and let you grow big and fat and happy. Now, this is where the metaphor ends, of course, because why would somebody keep a flock of sheep? Usually not for pets, right? This is for clothing and food. So, it's the metaphor ends here, and maybe that's why, maybe as David's thinking about it, he's like, let's switch to another metaphor. So he moves on, he says, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Right? So we switch in metaphors here. Now we're not talking about sheep. You usually don't invite sheep into your house and let them sit at your table. That's not what we're talking about. But we are talking about hospitality. So in this culture, hospitality is everything. This is huge. You have somebody in your home, you are responsible for them. Their life is more important even than your own life. If they are in your household, all of your family's honor, everything that matters in life is at stake if they are not completely taken care of and protected. Right? So this is very important. But he has this picture. There's another aspect of this too, where you communicate something to your community, to the people around you, by who you have over. Right? And this is something we can relate to in certain ways. Right? When you have, let's talk about like celebrities for a second. You have a celebrity, a famous person who is adored by a lot of people, and then what happens when that celebrity says something uncouth? Right? When that celebrity says something controversial. Maybe it's something really insensitive, maybe they're just expressing an opinion, and it's actually pretty harmless, or maybe they actually genuinely said something awful, or they did something awful, they were caught or exposed for doing something awful. Guess what happens? Suddenly, all of their celebrity friends have never met them in their life. Right? All of a sudden, any other person with any ounce of fame is turning on them and like, hey, I had nothing to do with them, right? They're going to get canceled, or they're going to get prosecuted, or they're going to get whatever. I'm not involved. I don't even know the guy, right? All of a sudden, it's like, I don't want to be associated. I don't want, when you think of that person and you think of them as a bad person, I don't want you to also think of me and think that I'm like that. So I have to show, this is the mindset at least, and sometimes this is really exaggerated and overblown, and they really probably could have just let it go, and it was just going to be a thing on Twitter for a day, and we could move on with our lives. But sometimes it's actually something really serious. But whatever the case, there's this survival instinct when you have any kind of fame or notoriety, that you have this instinct that I'm not going down on your ship. If your ship's going down, I'm not going down with you. Right? So I will not be associated with you. I don't want to affiliate with you. I don't have anything to do with those people over there, right? Because that's bad press. That's bad for my reputation. So here, what David is saying about God, in this culture, who you invite into your home and welcome and take care of and show hospitality to is an indication of who you are. It is saying something. It's going to get people in town talking. It's going to start gossip. People are going to have opinions about that. People are going to react to that. So he says, even in front of my enemies, there are people who want me dead. There are people who want to kill me. And in full view of my enemies, you invite me over for dinner. You welcome me into your home and show me the greatest hospitality. So he says, you prepare a table before me. You invite all of my enemies too. And you invite me, and you give me a seat of honor at the table. And you show right in front of all my enemies, you show me how much esteem you have for me. Right? That's the picture he's trying to create, is if you get invited to a dinner party, and everybody who has ever hated your guts is also invited, and they have to sit there the whole night and watch the host wait on you on your every little whim, on your every little desire, and just take great care of you and go out of their way to say, this person is so, I just love so-and-so. I'm just so excited to have so-and-so for dinner. Are you okay? Are you comfortable? Can I get you something, right? This is the statement that God is making. David is saying, God, the way that you love me, even when other people in this world do not, and sometimes don't treat me well, it is like you're doing that for me. It's like you're throwing a party in my honor and inviting all my enemies so that they can watch how much you love me. And you're going to show great hospitality, right? Because what do? You anoint my head with oil, right? Now, the anoint is probably the wrong word. It's not necessary. It doesn't have to be the word to use there. There is anointing with oil that means something in the Old Testament. When we talk about Messiah or Christ, it means the anointed one, right? A priest or a king or somebody, a prophet, somebody like that might be anointed for a particular task or something. We're not talking about that here. We're talking about this practice that if you have somebody over to your house, this is a part of the world where it is very hot. This is a part of the world with different bathing practices than what we do today, right? This is a part of the world that doesn't know about germs and a lot of other stuff that we have medical knowledge about now. The point is, you would have people over, and this was like a nice thing you could do for them, is to provide some oil for them to rub on their face and on their head. And it's good for the skin. It's kind of relieving after you've been out in the hot, blistering Middle Eastern sun, to come into the shade, have oil on your face. It feels nice. It maybe creates a nice fragrance for you and for everybody sitting around you, right? It might smell nice. So it's just a pleasant experience. It's a pleasant sensory experience, right? So it's a thing that you can do to wind down after being out in the hot, hot sun, to just sit and relax and rub some oil on your face. So it's a very kind thing for somebody else to provide for you, right? You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. This is not related. It's not a cup of oil. He's talking about my cup is always full. And your translation might say it that way. Like, as I'm sitting at your table, my cup never goes empty, right? When you go to a restaurant, you know the difference between the server that waits until your cup has been empty for 5 minutes and then they say, can I get you anything else? Right? It's like, well, you could fill my cup. That would be great. And then you get the waiter who's doesn't even ask. They already know, they remember what you ordered, or they're checking their notes or whatever. And before you even finish your glass, they're already putting a new one on the table, or they're already coming by with the pitcher and topping you off, right? There's a real difference between the quality of service there, right? I'm not saying this is a criticism of anybody. That's one of the hardest jobs in the world, and they have my utmost sympathy, right? And everybody has good days and bad days, and so I'm not judging anybody, right? But what I'm saying is, when you're on the receiving end of that, isn't it nice? Isn't it a nice surprise when you have a server who is so on top of it and so proactive and goes out of their way to make sure that your cup is never empty, right? That's a nice touch. That's a nice show of hospitality is what it is, right? And so, God, when I'm at your table, you invite me over to this party and you celebrate me and you show me honor and you invite all my enemies so they can get a front row seat to see how much honor you're showing me. And you give me some oil, and it feels great, and it smells nice. And you make sure my cup is always full. There's always more in front of me, right? The food's great. My plate's never empty. There's always more than enough for me. And he says, surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, right? So goodness means, goodness. Goodness is a good translation for that. This word love, your translation might say any number of things because it's really hard to translate into English. It's this Hebrew word chesed. Everybody say chesed. Get a good like you're trying to clear some phlegm, some chesed, right? Chesed is this word, it's like this, it's so hard to translate because it's this commitment, it's this devotion, it's this enduring, undying love and commitment that you would have for somebody. This is not just a feeling of affection like I'm in a good mood, so I like you today, right? This is not shallow. This is not just like a fleeting affection, like I have a crush on you. Like this is serious. I'm committed to you. I'm devoted to you. And I'm not going to back down, and I'm always going to show you this is a committed kind of love and devotion, right? And so you'll see it translated a lot of different ways. Even in your translation, it might be in every single verse where it shows up, it might not be translated exactly the same way because it's just really hard to convey exactly what's meant by it, right? But this is what he's talking about is this commitment, this devotion, right? And so he says, surely your goodness and your devoted and enduring and steadfast love will follow me. Now this word follow It's kind of funny to come across this word because usually this word occurs in a violent context. Usually when you see this word in the Hebrew, we're talking about like you're pursuing your enemies, right? If you read about like David and his forces, right? They win a battle and then as the enemy is fleeing, they pursue after their enemies and take captives, right? That kind of thing, right? Or Saul is pursuing David and David is hiding out in caves. This word pursue, as David is using that word, that's an interesting choice of words because his experience with this word is usually in a military context, right? Is usually either he is hunting someone else down or they are hunting him down. Right, is usually where we see this word and where David would have mainly seen this word, right? But he says, I am being hunted. I am being pursued, not by my enemies. They might try to. But you know where what's really hunting me down and pursuing me is God's love for me. God's commitment to me, God's devotion to loving me. That no matter how far away from it I run, and that's the implication here, by the way, is that I'm running away from something. I am running away from God. I'm running away from His love, but His love hunts me down. Like No Country for Old Men, right? Like Catch Me If You Can, like all the best movies that have a chase scene in them, right? God's love is tracking me down, is hunting me, will not let me get away. His goodness and His love are going to keep coming at me. No matter how far away I run, no matter where I hide, no matter what I do, they are coming for me, and there is no escape. You can't run, you can't hide, it's going to catch you, right? It's funny because we're using scary terminology, but we're talking about God's love. Yes, that's the point. That's exactly what David is trying to convey. Just like you might run for your life and be utterly terrified if you get caught by what is chasing you. That is what God's love and His goodness are doing for you. They will not give up on you. He will find you, right? God has developed a very special set of skills over a very long career, right? And Liam Neeson, anybody get the reference, right? Yep. I will pursue you. I will hunt you down, and I will find you, right? I'm not quoting it exactly. I'm going to leave out that, and I will kill you.
I will love you.
And I will love you. There we go. Right? But just picture Liam Neeson on the phone, right? And taking anybody, if you've seen that, right? God's love is doing that to you. God is pursuing you in that way. Now, I don't know about you. Sometimes in my relationship with God, I feel like I'm running away from Him. I feel like I'm hiding from Him. And I feel in my mind, I believe that it works. Right? This idea that if I can't see God, He can't see me. Right? Judah does this when he's embarrassed or he wants to play hide and seek or something. He will lie down on his face on the floor and cover his face on the floor. And he thinks that you can't see him. Because he can't see you, he thinks that you can't see him. And it's adorable because, he's just a little guy, so it's funny. Someday, I hope I don't have to explain that to him. I think he'll figure it out. But at his age, as far as he knows, that's true. Right? But sometimes I do that with God, though. As silly, as juvenile as it is, sometimes I think that if I'm running away from God, then God is running away from me. Or sometimes I run away from God because I think that He doesn't want to be around me. And David says, even when my enemies are after me, oh boy, what's really after me is God's love that doesn't quit. God's goodness that always finds me. No matter what I'm going through, God is always after me with love, with goodness, with blessing. So he says, surely your goodness and love will follow me, will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of Yahweh forever. Right? That's the house I want to live in. Where I had that kind of hospitality, where we had that party with all my enemies there watching. I just want to stay in this house forever. Yesterday, after we went to Hidden Lake Gardens, we went to my nephew's first birthday party. And he and his sister, my kids always love going and seeing those cousins. And they communicated this multiple times yesterday. They love going to Sutton and Levi's house because they have really awesome toys. Oh, and they like their cousins too. Yeah, but they have really cool toys. Sutton has such cool toys. Right? Now, if we were to do a count, I think we have more toys than they do. Or maybe they're just better at cleaning than we are. But We're 3 kids in, they're 2 kids in, and the youngest is 1, so they haven't collected, they haven't accumulated as much yet as we have by this point, 3 kids in. We have gotten rid of more toys than they own by now. I'm certain of it. Right? And they're good toys. It's not like we don't have good toys, but our good toys are ours. They see them every day. They ignore them. They don't play with most of them. They've hardly touched most of them, right? You go to Sutton and Levi's house, and it's all new, right? All new toys that you're not used to playing with all the time, so it's exciting. Anyway, but the point I'm getting at is, my kids, they come away from that, and they want to go back. They just want to stay at their cousin's house all day, right? Have you ever been to somebody's house, and you're just like, man, can I just live here? Would you just adopt me and take me in? There's other people's houses that you're like, I'm ready to get out of here, right? But some people's houses you might go to, some people, they show you hospitality, or they just have a nice place, or they have a lot of grown-up toys and amenities, right? That you're just like, can I just live here? You have such an awesome basement. You have such an awesome whatever. Like, you have a pool. You have, like, whatever it is they got going on. Like, man, I wish I had that. I wish I could just live here. This is nice, right? That's how David says he feels about God's house. So this is a God who loves us this much. Who loves us this much. That is how much he cares for you. Like this good shepherd, like this amazing host having you over for a meal, this is how God loves you. In a way that he is pursuing you. He is hunting you down to show love and goodness to you. In a way that he is with you, that he knows you, and he knows the way, and he knows which way to lead you. And he always takes good care of you, and there is never any reason not to trust his wisdom and his judgment. That even if you were walking through a path you would not pick for yourself because it's dark, it's scary, you think it's going to kill you, even then you wouldn't need to be afraid because he's with you, nothing can touch you. No matter who's after you, you're in his house. You are under his protection. And he wants to be associated with you. He wants people to know that you're his kid. He wants people to know that you belong to him. And no matter how far away you run, he will come after you with his love and his goodness. And he will not give up. This is the God that we talk about. When we talk about God in this church, this is who we're talking about. Now, our relationship with God is defined by this word faith. And there's a lot of ways we could define the word faith, but let me define it this way first today. Just for our purposes today, let's define it this way. Faith is, first of all, it is knowing who God is. It's knowing God. Knowing who he is, knowing what he's like. Number 2, the more that we know him, the more we understand him, we trust him. We realize he is trustworthy, and therefore he gains more of our trust. And when we begin to trust him, you know what we do? We follow him. We do things his way. We listen to him when he's speaking to us. First of all, it takes knowing God. And the more we know him, the more we trust him. And the more we trust him, the more we follow him. And guess what? The more we follow him, you know what happens? We get to know him even better. And trust him even more. And follow him more closely, more consistently. And it's a cycle, and it keeps going. So for our purposes, let's define faith this way. This is what this psalm is saying is, let me explain to you. When I say you can trust God, you can follow him, let me explain to you who I'm talking about. Because the more you understand who God is and what he's like and how he sees you, the more you will understand and appreciate who he is. You will reward him with your trust because he deserves it. And you will want to follow him because he will keep you safe and he will take care of you and he will make sure that you lack nothing you need. This is the God who will take care of you if you will just trust him and let him lead and follow his way. If you struggle with trusting God, if you struggle with following God in any way, can I encourage you to spend more time getting to know God? That maybe that is what you're missing. If you spend more time with God, attentive to him, talking and conversing with him, reading his word to learn about him, listening to all the multitudes of content that's out there on the internet that can teach you more about God. There are great books out there. There are great sermons and podcasts and audiobooks and YouTube videos. There's all kinds of stuff out there to help you know God more. Most importantly, of course, the Bible. If you will fill your mind with knowledge of God, do you know what will come of that? You will know him better, you will trust him more, you will follow him more closely, and then you will know him better because of that, and you will trust him more because of that, and so on and so on. Wherever you're lacking in your life, the root problem is that you don't know God very well. Wherever you are despairing, you're going your own way instead of God's way, you're not trusting him, it is because you don't know him well enough. You need to get to know him better. And let me just say, nobody knows him well enough. There is no such thing as enough until we get to spend all eternity with him, and then we have all eternity to get to enough if it's even possible to do so. But for now, whatever problem you're facing, the barrier, the root problem that you're experiencing is that you need to know God more so that as you know him better, you will trust him more. And as you trust him more, you will follow him and pursue him more. On that note, let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love and your goodness and your grace. God, we thank you for coming after us and pursuing us with your love and goodness. God, we thank you for providing for us, for leading us in a good and trustworthy way. God, we thank you for protecting us. God, we thank you for loving us so extravagantly, so over the top. Lord, I pray that all of us would know you more today, would know you more this week, that we would invest time and energy into knowing you more, so that as we know you more, we could trust you more and we could follow you more closely. We pray all this in the name of Jesus. Amen.